All right, are we ready to get started?
I think so.
Okay. Well, would you like to let them take a look at us? You want to do both? Or let's see. There we go.
Okay.
That way you can see what we're up to and see us. Thanks for joining us here. We're doing the best practices for increasing speed and decreasing risk with innovation. Really glad that you could join us. I am Lydia Carson. I'm the Vice President of Innovation Engineering Systems here at Eureka Ranch.
And I am David Lafkas. I'm a patent attorney here at the ranch and Innovation Engineering Black Belt.
Oh, and I am that as well. I am.
Great, and before we start, I do want to let everybody know that as we're going through the slides, if you have questions or comments or anything, feel free to type them in at on your GoToWebinar control panel there, and we will make sure that we get to those if we can at the end. If not, we will get back to you afterwards, individually if needed.
We will do that. Okay, well, as I mentioned, we're here at Eureka Ranch. We're actually in lovely Cincinnati, Ohio, in the building pictured there. With Eureka Ranch, we've been around for actually even more than 28 years, worked with a bunch of companies on innovation, anywhere from large companies to small companies. But most importantly, our mission here is to change the world by transforming innovation from a random gamble to a reliable system. That delivers increased speed and decreased risk, which is obviously the important topic that we're discussing here today.
And we've been growing this whole movement, really. And one of the first big steps that we took back in the mid-2000s was actually create the Innovation Engineering Institute. And that all started at the University of Maine, and that's now expanded to 12 different universities around the U.S. that are actually now teaching this curriculum.
Also, definitely want to mention the Innovation Engineering Network. We have partners in crime that are also Innovation Engineering Black Belts, like David and I, around the world that are helping companies, as part of the movement. And some of those are online today, so welcome. So first and foremost, in order to increase speed and decrease risk with innovation, there's just certain basics that have to be in place before you can even get started. One is, basically, there's got to be agreement on several things. One is, what is innovation? Why should we innovate? And how do we innovate? So everyone in the company, everyone in your organization, regardless of the type of company that you've got, need to have agreement on that. So what is innovation? Well, we define it as being meaningfully unique. And that means it matters, that it matters. And it doesn't just matter to your customer, it matters to three. It matters to your customer, but also to your organization, and most importantly to you, to the person that's actually working on the project, because people make time for what matters. And when we're talking about increasing speed and decreasing risk, if you don't want to work on it, you're probably going to go pretty slow. So it's really important to work on what matters to you. And another reason is, innovation. It can be hard. So you got to love it.
And we say there's some traits for the meaningful uniqueness. And we'll start first with just what is meaningful. And so there has to be an obvious value. It has to be worth more to the customer. That might be in time, it might be in energy, but it's got to have some value for the customer. And you also have to get a change in behavior on your customer's part, whether it's changing from a different product or service, or just willing to try something new. And it has to be instantly understandable. Back to the old elevator speeches that we all learned, years ago. If you're stuck in an elevator with somebody, you've got 30 seconds to tell them what you do. Kind of the same thing with meaningfulness. But it also needs to be unique, and it needs to be clear, and it has to be a non-obvious leap. And so, in my area with patentability, that has a real defined legal definition. But what we really wanted to say is it doesn't exist anywhere in the world. And it wouldn't be clear to somebody to go there. It shouldn't be instantly believable. If it is really believable, as I used to tell clients when they come to my office, it probably isn't that unique if I can figure it out that quickly. And there needs to be an advantage that you can quantify. Put a number on it that it's, this will clean your clothes 10 times more, better than any other thing. And then within that, we also say there are two different types of innovations. We have those core innovations. Your company just needs to do these just to remain competitive in just day-to-day business. But then we also want to be able to change trajectories. And these are the leap innovations. And that's where you really want to change direction for you and take the company a new way. But you need to balance these. So what we do is we say you want to have about 85% of core projects and 15% leap projects. However, 50% of your growth really should be from the leap projects. And then, on top of that, we then say there are two different forms of innovations. So we have VIO, which are the very important opportunities that you'd want to pursue. So these are for new and current customers, but maybe new services, new products that you can get out on the market. But we also say you've got to work on your very important systems, your VISs, because this is what really makes your company run more smoothly. So you really want to make sure that, say, the legal department is able to work with the marketing department in a much cleaner fashion, so that you can get your innovations going.
It's hard to get speed on your opportunities if you don't have the system. So innovation on both sides is very critical, for sure.
So why should we innovate? Might sound like a funny question, but ultimately you don't want your organization to die. None of us want that. And as we've got the number there, 75% of the S&P 500 are gone within 16 years. So what we want to do is look at the cycle of life. And frankly, just like with each of us individually, each company has a birth, growth, highest profits, pinnacle of our lives, and then you have your cost cutting and, sadly, for some companies, death. But unlike humans, you can restart, so you don't have to have that death when it comes to companies. And that's what innovation does, is it restarts the life cycle and creates more fun and more profit for your company.
Yep, absolutely. So how do we innovate? Well, it's all about systems, and I'm a systems kind of gal. So you got to love Dr. Deming. But as he said, 94% of failures are due to the system, 6% are due to the worker, and when it comes to increasing speed and decreasing risk with innovation, as we mentioned, the systems are critical. So that's the approach that we use. Dr. Deming talked about manufacturing as a system, and I won't go through this whole thing, but basically when you hear Dr. Deming in his most entertaining way review the chart, he was defining it decades ago as being much more than just running SPC charts on the shop floor. It involved getting ahead of the customer and was actually quite holistic and not that inconsistent from what we do at all. So what we've done is actually look at innovation as a system, and we've kind of mapped it ourselves. So when you think of innovation as a system, you've got insights, technologies, trends, market needs, information from your vendors and customers that are coming in all the time. And you're also proactively going out looking for that. You've also got a growth strategy that leadership's defined, or you would have this if you've got your proper system in place. Obviously, what led into that growth strategy is also going to have a lot to do with the inputs from the other side. That's why it's a cycle. It's not just a one-time thing. And your strategy should also include, the leadership strategy shouldn't just be about new products and services. You should have some systems strategies as well. So you've got the strategy, you've got this information coming in from outside, and the company is using these to define and discover innovations. Then they're developed, and we'll get into more details on how all of this works a little bit later, but then you develop those, you deliver, you learn. Everything is a cycle, so you're not done when you deliver. There's a lot more learning to be done. In addition to that, you should be continuing to go out and do, and scan and look at what's going on with your customers, your markets, the technologies that are out there, and coming together at least on a quarterly basis. We don't do strategic planning once a month, once a year, or once every 3 years and build a binder and set it on a shelf. No, we're looking at this stuff every quarter. It's a living, breathing thing, our strategy document is. or strategy documents, which are our blue cards. And so what we learn gets fed back in and we update the strategy, and then what we learn from there will trickle down back into creating more ideas and learning from a systems perspective on all the way through development. So it really is a true cycle. There's a lot about innovation that can be kind of scary, but really it just boils down to 3 core principles to increase speed and decrease risk. Meaningfully unique ideas, because that's our objective, whether it's for systems or products or services. We want them to be meaningfully unique ideas. We explore stimulus, we leverage diversity, and we drive out fear. It really is that simple. For over 30 years, even back before our founder Doug, started the company, was back at P&G, this equation holds. So don't forget it. It's easy. It's simple. We can complicate it in other ways, but the basics are simple. So. What's important when you're doing things is a systematic approach where you've got proven tools that can help you do these things. And we'll hit on some of those. But basically, when we're talking about exploring stimulus and leveraging diversity, that's how we create ideas. And any company or organization, and of course with innovation engineering, we've got tools and processes that are proven to work with that. To drive out fear, you've got an idea. Well, you've got to be able to effectively communicate that, and then you've got to apply some commercialization processes and skills and tools to help you do that as efficiently as possible, because all that's going to be important for increasing speed and decreasing risk, which is our objective. So in order to get started, leadership's got to define what they need and why they need it. We need to make sure everybody's got some alignment. So they define on, the way that we do it is with blue cards. If you don't use blue cards and you have some other approach, that's fine. But we've just tried to put together systems and tools that help make it easy. But basically what you're doing is leadership saying, okay, what are the important opportunities with customers or the systems that we need to work on for improving how we work. And we're not talking about hundreds of these either. We're talking about, 2 or 3, we've seen some where they've got maybe 6, but a limited number of what we're working on right now. Because keep in mind, we're looking at these quarterly, so you can change, things can change, but right now, over this next quarter, what do we really need to be focusing on? And that's critical, that's the most important thing. If that's not there, you're really going to spin your wheels moving forward and end up being slow and risky if the workers don't even have a clue what the leadership wants. So don't skip that step. Once that's done, though, the great thing about it is those strategies are written in a way that's motivating, and so that employees can invent solutions, whether it's for customers or internally, on how to address those. So we explore by creating, we create by exploring stimulus. All of these components of the equation are critically important. Classic ways that companies do it are with market mining and insight mining. Market, looking at your competitors, insight, thinking about, listening to your customers. These things are important. They're typical. Most companies are doing that. But we also find great value in looking at patents and looking at experts that are out there in the white papers and the cutting edge research that's going on with tech mining. And then stretch mining, what's going to happen in the future? And how can we go and explore trends within our industry and outside that are going to affect us? And then unrelated mining, that's fabulous as well. You can spark some truly unique ideas by looking at unrelated stimulus. Also, it's important to leverage diversity. This is an easy one to skip, but if you see a person working on a project and they start to get frustrated because they're just not being able to resolve the issues and move it forward, which of course creates a slowdown, then leverage some diversity. Go get some people. Go do some mining and get you some different folks that think differently and have different types of jobs, different places in the organization to help. Most importantly, once we've done that, we want to make sure that we're focused on the customer, whether it's internal or external. What's their problem? What's the benefit promise that we're going to give them in order to address that problem? And what's the proof that we're going to be able to deliver on this? Why should they believe us? Because as David said, if it's unbelievable, which you want it to be, you want it to be such a wow they can't believe it, then they're going to want to say, okay, now how the heck are you going to do that? So you want to be able to tell them that clearly and concisely. And then importantly on the inside is that we've got a good solid math game plan on how we're going to make money on this. Or if it's a system, it might be saving money or increasing speed, which saves money and can also lead to increased profits. So That's important.
Well, and I think some of our audience right now is probably looking at some of this, who's people who've never seen innovation engineering are probably saying, okay, that sounds really nice, but this really could spark a lot of fear because there's a lot here that seems like it's unknown, and that's okay. There are going to be uncertainties as you go through this, and what we do is we relabel uncertainties and risks as death threats. And these are the things that you say, you know what, I need to learn more in this area. Here's what we don't know today. Let's just figure out what little steps can we do in the next couple of weeks to actually work through those things, rather than just saying, no, you can't do this, we don't know how. Learn how to just relabel those as death threats, and so then you can figure them out. And we do that by going through what we call fail fast, fail cheap cycles of learning, of just plan, do, study, act. And most of the time, we have people that do the 7-day cycles. When you come here to the ranch, for example, for an accelerator program, which is an awesome 3.5-day program, we end up doing 1-hour cycles of learning. And it's really amazing how quickly it can go, but you work through these death threats. And by doing so too, you're decreasing risk. Where in the old world, it's just plan forever. Now all of a sudden we're saying, no, use fail fast, fail cheap, just do small cycles of learning of plan, do, study, act.
And it doesn't just, this is critical for not only decreasing risk, but increasing speed.
Yeah.
Break it down, bite-sized chunks, and get on it. Focus on the right things.
And so, those of you especially that use StageGate are probably very familiar with the develop and deliver stages. And what we've done is we've broken down some of that into, all of a sudden, with the develop, you should have alpha, beta, and first release, and what certain percentages of what you know. So we're kind of move faster, get something out there to some of your audience. But then before that too, make smarter decisions by doing the research in advance and working through your define and discover, and not spending a whole lot of money on working through those at that point. But if you add those stages at the beginning, which some people consider kind of the more fuzzy front end, your develop and deliver are going to be more profitable, they're going to be faster for you, and just ultimately smoother as well.
Yep, and with all that we've learned in our almost 30 years here, and even before that, we've actually come to the conclusion that there are several that we've already talked about, but what we call the 5 pillars to increase speed and decrease risk, because there's certain systems that tend to be more critical and more important for really helping you boost those objectives. And so we've called those the 5 pillars. And it doesn't have to be innovation engineering. You'll get what we're talking about. These are things that are critical regardless of what sort of system you use. Things that you don't want to forget about. The foundation of an innovation-driven company, we've already talked about this a bit. You've got to have the same mindset. Okay, what do we call innovation? What is an innovation? Why do we innovate? How do we innovate? Meaningfully unique ideas, stimulus, diversity, driving out risk. Those things have to be fundamentally agreed to, and there's got to be systems for educating on an ongoing basis to make sure that stays there. The operating system, these are systems that connect strategy, tactics, customers, and departments. For those of you that are using different processes, maybe for the fuzzy front end, and coordinating those with StageGate, and there's a whole lot of other integrated systems that you do when you innovate, and those are all included. And the most important thing about it is that you need alignment. So departments, within departments, you don't want silos. With your customer, we need to see alignment, the strategy, the tactics, the projects that are going on. And that's just the foundation. You can't go anywhere without that. So that's kind of like the price of entry on innovation. But to be a world-class company, what we've really found is that having systems for decreasing risk and give you courage that you're going to be able to go out there and using fail fast, fail cheap to help you get things to market quickly. Also collaboration systems. These can really increase speed, increase capacity if it's not just the lone project leader and maybe 1 or 2 other people. If you look outside of the company and other areas of the company and really collaborate, that can have a big impact on speed and risk. And then patent ROI, which Dave will talk about here in a bit because he's the expert on that. You want to make sure that you're getting that you're sustaining a competitive advantage. If you're truly innovating, what you're working on should be patentable, regardless of how you end up handling that. Now, just kind of to let you know some stats that we have on this, it's actually been proven that by using these 5 pillars, you can get innovations to market in 16% of the time, 10% of the cost, 10% of the staffing. So, I mean, when you're looking for increasing speed, decreasing risk, if you focus on these things, it helps you get there. So coming back around to each pillar, the operating system, it's about how employees and leadership work together to create, communicate, and commercialize meaningful, unique ideas. So some tips about what need to be included. With the operating system, we need to make sure that there's alignment, strategy to tactics. Otherwise you're going to be wasting time spinning your wheels, redoing things, coming up to the strategy meetings, wondering why are we working on that? You don't want to ask that question. Departmental alignment, right? A lot of companies have issues with silos. Tossing something over to the next silo is a good way to have some rework and failures too. So those are critical things to keep in mind. And also you want to make sure you're aligned with the customer. So you want to have systems where you're getting customer feedback a lot, as David mentioned, like with the Alpha Beta first release. There are things that you can do to get in front of the customer on a regular basis as part of your standard system that can help you increase speed and decrease risk. Also the fail fast, fail cheap. I mean, that's obviously a critical part of what we do and what we talk about and what you're going to want to be focusing on as well as you try to increase your speed. So it's about having rapid cycles of learning, and it doesn't just make you go faster, but it gives you courage because you know that you're biting off a little piece that you can go tackle. So the keys as far as your system that you need to develop along these lines is to make it easy to fail fast and cheap. So what are your systems for rapid prototyping? Obviously you need to be able to do that pretty quickly, and if you find that you don't, well, that means you need a system project to work on that. Systems for customer contact, this is a really common one that slows companies down, where it can take months to get some feedback when we want it to take days or at the most a week. And let it be ugly. When you're doing prototyping, don't worry about it being perfect. Be willing to show it to the customer while it's ugly. And if you're the leader, if you take it out there ugly, then your employees will follow. So it's not that tragic as long as you lay the groundwork that, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What do you think? It's not that painful to show them something that's not perfect. I mean, I'm an engineer too. I understand wanting stuff to be perfect, but if you wait till it's perfect, that is very, very slow. And also, you want to make sure that you quantify reference standards so that you can get smarter. So, capture your learning. Look at historical projects. What worked? What didn't? What is the expectation for success as you move forward?
And one of the most important pillars, I think, is actually the collaboration. Think about the knowledge base that's within any company, any organization, just around the world. We all, have access to Google, and we think we have the answers to everything. But there's so much within an organization that is lost because people are not collaborating with each other, knowing what the history was of a certain product or service that we could all learn from. So having a system where people can actually work together is only going to increase your capacity for innovation. And you can do this without having to hire more staff or spend a whole lot more money because, frankly, that's not going to make you go any faster. But what you want to do is drive out fear by actually having some sort of policy to allow people to collaborate. One of the systems that we use allows everybody within Eureka Ranch to talk to each other on certain projects, but then we take it to another level where we reach out to our licensees for help, and then beyond that to the world. And so every company really should have some sort of policy and system for doing so. But you also want to make it simple, because if it's not simple, people are not going to do it. And you also want to work through your supply chain as well, because they're going to have ideas for you as to how to accelerate, and you don't want to leave them in the dark as you're trying to innovate going forward. And then we also have the patent ROI system, which is a little near and dear to my heart here at the ranch. But as we have here on the slide, how do you elevate innovation from smoke and mirrors gimmicks? Unfortunately, in the patent world, there's been a lot of that in the past, where you have these innovation companies that have promised these people that we will get you a patent on something, and then they do nothing. And in fact, they usually just steal their money. And so, because of that, there's been a lot of misinformation about patents. And we need to all of a sudden turn that into a tangible capital asset, an advantage. And we need to have people within the company start to understand what patents are. It's amazing how many CEOs that Doug has put me in front of that have no knowledge whatsoever about patents and trademarks even. They'll sit there and not know what the difference is. And yet they're running these companies that really are in existence because of their intellectual property. So we need to educate people on intellectual property. And then we need to get people using the free patent blueprints in what we consider the great deals or the patent flea market on labs, because these are the patents that are available for purchase at a very low price that you can all of a sudden leapfrog your competition and really kickstart your innovation system by having protected technology right away. And I would say you need to build a provisional stacking system. And you need to get people within your company writing their own provisional applications. Get it out of the hands of the lawyers, because the inventors are the ones that know the technology.
They're slow and expensive.
We are.
Not David, but
no.
the rest of them.
But get it out of their hands for the provisional. But for the non-provisional, I would say yes, definitely work with your attorneys. But let's get faster, because there's too much technology that's just being left behind. And frankly, that's free money that these companies are leaving. And then you also need to be able to start translating these patents into business opportunities. We've got the tech speak, but what does it really mean? What's in that patent? How are we going to make money off of it? And so it's going to help you make smarter decisions, maximize internal use, and obviously just grow your sales. And then we want to bring this all together too with just having a continuous education program. You want to have never-ending improvement, and obviously confidence in what's going on as well. And so we bring it all together using several of our different systems and tools, like Cycles to Mastery, which is our patent pending system for teaching that's used at the universities and here at Innovation College, and we have that. We have Innovation Engineering Labs, which includes a lot of our tools, like I mentioned, patent blueprints is in there. But it's really going to kickstart your acceleration system by bringing this all together there.
Yeah, the key is that you've got something. I mean, there's a consciously developed system for ensuring that you've got agreement, alignment on innovation, and then on actually how to go out and get it done. So there's a number of ways to do that. Well, the best practice for all of this is not only to have all of these pillars, have systems in place for all of these, but to have one system that's 100% integrated. So these aren't individual systems that you've got like, oh, we do development this way, and oh, we do handle our patents this way, and it's about having the entire system integrated. And does it sound hard? Yes, it is. That's why you've got to love it. To go back to the earlier slide, you've got to really want to go there. But once you have these systems in place, it makes life so much easier and faster. So as you're working through putting them together, I'm a systems gal, so I think that's a blast. But even though it's a little daunting to think about having all of this integrated system, it is actually, you can get big benefits right away just by getting started. And here is Sheldon Scott giving us, who was getting started, giving us kind of some feedback on how what he's doing is going as he moves forward. And unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but I want you to hear Sheldon because he says it nice and succinctly.
Okay, Doug, here we are. We're at Fenway Park, and Whitney Blake has a great update for the IE community. Back in June at the leadership retreat, we were able to develop a product, an idea for a product for firemen to save lives. We introduced that product concept into the portal in August of 2013. By October, we had sat there and we were able to go do define, discovery, and into develop, and actually made a working prototype in 8 days. First time ever. In November, the NFPA was so excited that we were working on a cable to solve their problems that they let us use their NIST lab outside of Pittsburgh for nothing. We tested our cable. The cable passed. We tested the cable 10 times for the same test. It passed all 10 times. It was awesome. Totally awesome. Then we had a customer call us right after Thanksgiving looking for a similar product for the application. We said, hey, we've got this new product that we're coming out with called Fire Tough, but we need to file a patent. So in December 2013, we filed a patent. In March of this year, I was sitting with the customer, and the customer was actually pitching me, the supplier, for an exclusive on my product. Tell you, that's the place I want to be more often. With innovation engineering, we can do that. So, Sheldon Scott from Fenway Park, Game 2 of the season, signing off. Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Well, you just absolutely have to love Sheldon. And he would be pleased to know that I am going to the Boston Red Sox and Cincinnati game on Wednesday night.
Who are you cheering for?
Go Reds. But anyway, that's an example of somebody getting started, getting excited, and we're talking about having fun here and making a difference, and making a difference fast. So you don't have to tackle that whole huge thing all at once. Get started, you'll get a benefit. We wanted to have some time for questions, but it looks like we're actually going to be we're actually right at the time limit. So what I think that we'll want to ask you to do, we've got our contact information there. We've got email, we've got phone. We'll also follow up with an email from this. We'd be happy to chat with you more and answer your questions. That was a fire hose of information, we know. And there's a lot more to all of that. So we'd be happy to discuss it with you more and or answer any questions that you have. So like I said, our email addresses are pretty simple here at the ranch. Lydia at Eureka Ranch, David at Eureka Ranch. And then that's our main line where you can reach either one of us.
And before we go to, I do want to point out we have a new set of webinars that we're going to start next week, where I'm going to be delving into different intellectual property, kind of real hands-on practical things. So next week, actually, we're going to go over how to actually read a trademark form at the Patent and Trademark Office. So when you're doing some trademark searching, what does all that gobbledygook on there really mean? So we're going to go through that kind of step by step. So, hopefully we'll see you there, or invite your friends to that as well. Yeah,
we'll be sure to let you know, but we've actually got a calendar of webinars based on the kind of things that folks have told us that they need to do. And they're all kind of touching on a bunch of the things that we hit here today. This is kind of an overview, but we're going to dive more deeply into several of the areas. And we'll keep you posted, because we'd love to see you here for those.
Great.
So signing off.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Go enjoy some lunch.
Yes. And shoot us any questions that you might have. And those that have already sent in some questions, we will get back to you.
We will get back to you. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.